And we have some breaking news from the 2020 campaign race. Senator Kamala Harris is expected to drop out. The California Democrat has been struggling to gain momentum. A recent staff shakeup had her team refocusing on Iowa. The caucuses there are less than 9 weeks away. She is the third candidate to drop out in the past week. CBS News political correspondent Ed O'Keefe is in Washington and joins us now. Hi, Ed. So this is rather surprising, correct? I mean, do we know what led to her decision?
In some ways it is, Tanya, because we didn't think it would happen this quickly. In others, it's not. Last week was the end of another monthly fundraising deadline, and she's now the third in 48 hours to announce that they're getting out. I think we're getting to a point where a lack of fundraising and polling strength and organizational strength in some of these states is making it difficult for some of these candidates to realize that they can go on. But what we do know, the news that we can report, our colleagues Caitlin Huey-Burns, Tim Perry, and I confirming that she is telling staff today that she is suspending her campaign. We should have the control room keep an eye out on Twitter for an announcement video of some kind that is coming from her shortly, I'm told. She had spent the last few days in Iowa. She spent Thanksgiving in Iowa with her family. Again, part of this bid to double down in the Hawkeye State and make magic happen there for her. But it was clear that there had been struggles behind the scenes to come up with a coherent message, a coherent sense of where exactly she would play and how she would do it. And some pretty embarrassing reports in the last few days of the real turmoil in her operation over how to proceed. Part of the problem here, and this is a lesson that other candidates have learned over time, is that you had a pair of competing sets of advisors, professionals hired and paid for by the campaign apparatus, and her sister. Family, in other words, and having differing views on how exactly things should proceed. Maya Harris, her sister, who was an advisor to Hillary Clinton's campaign, a Democratic activist in her own right, has been by her sister's side the entire time, but so have a bunch of professional consultants based mostly out of California who have struggled to mesh with the Harris family and determine how exactly they should proceed. So, a surprise in that this is somebody who had started the year really in quite a commanding position. 20,000 people showed up in her hometown of Oakland, California to kick things off. She started to some extent in the top tier, or at least was seen as somebody who certainly could see her campaign grow a bit, and slid out of there after the summer. Folks will remember her attack on Joe Biden at that debate in Miami, where she raised concerns about the former vice president's position on federal busing policy. Got her a bit of a bounce, fundraising bounce, a polling bounce, but within days she was admitting that she had a similar view on the issue, and it kind of just fizzled out from there. And from there was really no return to the top, or no ability to bounce again. And we are where we are. This may actually be sort of a face-saving move, Tanya. You get out now, you do it gracefully, you perhaps preserve your options for future work, maybe as a running mate, maybe as an administration official, should Democrats prevail. And also remember this, you have now, I guess, 5 other senators still running for president who are going to have to contend with the possibility of a weeks-long impeachment trial that would keep them off the campaign trail for a little while. Harris may have seen that coming and realized that she was in enough trouble as it is, that an absence from the trail would have potentially accelerated her ability to maintain, altitude and pull off a, respectable finish in Iowa.
Yeah, a surprising abrupt end to, like you said, a campaign that started out strong. CBSN political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns joins us as well. Caitlin, what are you hearing about her decision? I mean, as Ed and I were just discussing, and as we've discussed before, she really decided to go all in and double down in Iowa, and that seems to have not panned out. But what conclusion was she drawing? Why was she saying it's not panning out? Was she reacting to polls?
Right. Well, we've been texting with campaign sources just confirming this news, and they say a video is forthcoming that she informed her staff today. As Ed mentioned, she had been really doubling down in Iowa. A couple of months ago, the campaign told us that they were going to cut staff in New Hampshire and really focus all in on Iowa. They thought that kind of getting her back into these more intimate settings, these one-on-one interactions with voters. She had been cooking dinner for some supporters, really small events. Contrast that to kind of how she started. Remember, she had one of the biggest crowds for her launch campaign earlier this year, announcing in February in her home state of California, drawing 20,000 people. We saw that she had a couple of things I think that are worth highlighting as we're trying to track her rise and fall. In that big debate, that first debate, she went heavily after Joe Biden on the busing issue, but then she really struggled to define her own position on that issue. And we saw that, even the campaign acknowledged that her bump that time was really a sugar high. We saw her kind of trip up on a couple of other issues. Medicare for All, I think, is a good example. Could really not quite navigate what her position is. First embracing it, she got tripped up on the question of private insurance, and then eventually landed on her own health care proposal. But I think that was indicative of how this campaign operated, which was that it kind of struggled to find its message, had various different messages. During the Judiciary Committee hearings, she really made a name for herself. She's a former prosecutor. Lots of people thought that she could kind of use that as a launching pad, but she also had things in her record that garnered criticism from a lot of Democrats as well. So she didn't quite lean into that perhaps as early on as she wanted to. So I think those are a few things that really resulted in her campaign having a real fast fall.
And I am hearing that we have a soundbite from Joe Biden reacting to this news. Is that right, guys? Do we have what? All right, let's take a listen.
My reaction is she is a first-rate intellect, a first-rate candidate, and it's a real competitor. I have mixed emotions about it because she is really a solid person, and we're loaded with talent. But I'm sure she's not dropping out of wanting to make the changes she cares about.
Would you consider her for VP still?
So, Ed, I guess, Joe Biden there saying he has real mixed emotions, that, he's on the one hand sad to hear about it. She was a strong competitor. I guess no hard feelings over some of those early attacks on the debate stage.
Yeah, it's a reminder, you come for the king, you best not miss, because everyone now who's gone after Biden in a debate has essentially suffered this fate. Kirsten Gillibrand, Kamala Harris, Julian Castro, all of them now essentially unable to topple the guy who's been in the mix at the top the entire year. And it's a reminder that he does have a somewhat impenetrable command of the field, despite its size, despite the fact that it reflects the diversity and the changing nature of the Democratic Party. Yeah. One little piece we can add to this, we know now from one of our colleagues that the Harris campaign was informed of this. The staff was in a conference call again this morning. That's a staff that stretches from Baltimore at national headquarters to Iowa to California and Nevada as well. That's essentially the composition of her operation at this point. It had shrunk, of course, in recent days. Part of this, we believe, is the fact that money was drying up. Fundraising is critical at this stage. You've got to be able to continue raising money as you scale up, not only in those first 4 states, but have to start thinking ahead to Super Tuesday. And so if she was missing her fundraising marks going into the end of the month last week, then they may have come out of that and said, look, Senator, if you didn't meet X, you're not going to be able to pay Y. It's time to cut loose. And so Steve Bullock did that yesterday. Obviously, Joe Sestak, somebody who had been a complete non-starter in this race, did it as well. Now Harris, we've suspected this would happen and there could be others that do it. With her departure, we're at 15 declared Democratic presidential candidates. We haven't been there since March, I believe it is now, that we've had that many in the race. That is now a smaller field than the Republican field was 4 years ago at this time. Remember, they had 17 in the mix with Donald Trump on top. We're now at 15 with Kamala Harris on top.
So, Caitlin, I believe you just got some news as we're sitting here from the campaign.
Yes, so the campaign has now released a statement, so it is official. Kamala Harris says that she has taken stock and looked at this from every angle over the last few days, and she has come to the realization that my campaign for president simply does not have the financial resources we need to continue. So to Ed's point, I was very much a driver of this decision. She says she's vowing to stay in this fight, to campaign on things that she cared about, justice for the people, as was her campaign slogan. And so this is a letter really to supporters to kind of thank them for staying with her and explain why she can't continue on. She says, I'm not a billionaire. I can't fund my own campaign. As the campaign has gone on, it's become harder and harder to raise money. We need to compete. And that's been a theme, of course, that we've seen.
All right, there you have it. Senator Kamala Harris ending her presidential presidential campaign. She started out strong, and today she ends it, but again, vowing to continue a lot of her political work. All right, Ed O'Keefe and Caitlin Huey-Burns, thanks to both of you.